Monster RX93.1 presents Heard on Thursdays. Hot conversations on hot topics. Your host, Nikki Porter.
Hey Monsters, good evening. Welcome to the show that made Philippine FM radio talk, heard on Thursdays on the Monster. I'm your host this evening, Nikki Porter. Now you're probably familiar with Gossip Girl and Dumois, but do you know Mischief Editor? Mischief Editor is the social media persona of POLA Del Monte, a 30-something journalist, writer, and editor based in Manila. She majored in the English language at the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and then pursued graduate studies in business communications at Harvard, earning a GPA of 3.78. Paula started her career in media writing long-form features and cover stories on business, the stock market, luxury, politics, and social issues for a publication. When the anxiety and pressure of working in the print industry became unbearable, Paula shifted to marketing communications. In 2022, largely on a whim, she created the Mischief Editor account for writing-related content and commentaries about language use in media, business, politics, and pop culture. Now, through writing workshops and content laced with pop culture references, Mischief Editor empowers writers and non-writers to shun laziness, read critically, sharpen their skills, and continue breaking the glass ceiling. So without further ado, heard on Thursdays, let's welcome to the show Paula Del Monte, aka Mischief Editor!
Hi, nice to meet you.
All right. Oh my gosh, so cool to meet you in person. It's almost like meeting Gossip Girl.
No.
So,
I just imagine how I feel listening to you on the radio. I feel like
no, let's not go there. No, but really, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show because I love your content. It can be so sassy but informative at the same time. So it's like I love to just keep reading and learning from it for sure. Now, I scoured, I went really deep in your posts, like from 2020 something.
Okay.
And it said, according to a survey, up to 71% of job postings in 2019 actually listed excellent communication as a required skill. Now, for someone who worked and studied in media and in communications, how can you interpret that for monsters who might be job seeking? Because excellent communication, it can be broad. So, what is it that you feel like companies are looking for when they say excellent communication?
Okay, this feels like a pop quiz. I don't remember. No, I remember that post. Yeah, so let's just say I have colleagues who are, they speak with a slight twang versus they're more timid people. And I've noticed everywhere, those who are more outspoken, those who seem more confident, they get ahead. And sometimes that confidence is not matched by competence. And so I feel like, communication skills, it's something that can help people, who have the skills, who have the grit to become better at the workplace, to become noticed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned that because there's a lot of people who are outspoken in different companies or wherever it is that they work, and it brings about this psychological term, and I can't remember what it is right now, but it's something to do with the whoever speaks the loudest often actually has nothing to say.
Yeah.
So
and those who don't know a lot, they're the ones that make more noise.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just really fascinating and so important, I think, to point that out in terms of what communication means, how important communication is, not just in job seeking, but also in consuming all forms of communication, be it at work or especially in social media, which we're gonna be talking at length this evening. So before we get into those, though, let's get to know Paula, aka Mischief Editor, for now. So I read from your introductory post that you started this page to heal from a toxic relationship.
That's a long story.
I mean, we're not going to get into the nitty gritty, don't worry. But I feel like many of us could, relate to that. We'll do
Mm-hmm.
something to distract ourselves so that we can heal from whoever broke our hearts and everything. But could you tell me more about like how this started? Set that scene for us. You don't have to go like all the way from the beginning, but at least like at the end of it, what was going through your mind and what compelled you to eventually start Mischief Editor?
Well, actually, it was very casual. I think because I was newly single, I had a lot of time on my hands. So I had more time to make commentaries about random stuff. So I think I saw like an open letter from a local politician to Mark Zuckerberg. Which is, so what I did was, instead of, a lot of people usually, they make fun of stuff like that,
Mhm.
and which is, understandable. But what I did was I analyzed it like per paragraph or per
Mhm.
sentence, and even the structure of the letter,
Mhm.
that it was not, that it didn't follow the proper format, etc. So
Mm-mm.
I posted that on my personal IG. It was not Mischief Editor
Mhm.
then. And then my friends, they were like, and they come from different professions. They're
Mm.
not, all of them are writers. Some of them are lawyers, or some of them have their own businesses. And they were like, I learned a lot. And that's when I realized that my skills in writing, they can be applied in different, in different
Yeah,
sectors.
for sure.
And that writing skills, or even speaking skills, like I'm
Yeah.
sure what you have, they actually have good applications in their skills that are, well, not required for other professions, but they can be, assets
Mm-hmm.
for people. So when I got that feedback, and people were telling me to create a TikTok, but I'm not a TikTok native.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm an IG native.
Yeah.
So Instagram obviously was my and then I had like pegs then.
Yeah.
Those that you mentioned, stuff like that. Also Mrs. Dow Jones.
Mm,
She
okay.
is a financial what do you call that? Financial literacy person.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but she
Gotcha.
also uses a lot of pop culture references. And yeah, and I spend, well, at least I used to spend
Mm-mm.
like Carrie Bradshaw. So she had that post about like how Carrie Bradshaw spends. And then like, oh my gosh, hindi pala yan healthy.
Mm.
So that kind of like, oh, okay, so that makes things interesting for people. If you give
Yeah.
them something else to, to latch on to when you talk about something more complex, or something that's out of their, area of
Yeah.
expertise. So that's how the brand was formed.
That's awesome. And I love actually, especially about the posts that you like make references to like for certain concepts, certain like ways of like strategizing like in terms of communication. Like there's Emily in Paris, there's Sex in the City, there's
And local also.
yeah, and local also. So
Yeah.
it's so fascinating and it's so right. Like you make these analogies or like you cite these examples and it's so helpful for people to better understand the concepts and I feel like that's why it's so digestible, whatever it is that you put out there. And it's so informative, like I mentioned. So before Mischief Editor, let's even forget about the X, right? What is your origin story? So we talked a little bit about your background. You worked in media and you were a reporter or writer. So could you give us like first highlight reel of what your life was like after you, let's say, graduated from UP, and then from the highlight reel later, we can talk about like some realizations of you probably should have known about this, but you didn't know about it getting into like the industry until you were there.
Okay. Well, even before like UP, I went to an all girls school. I went to
Mm-hmm.
MC. So I think that really also helped shape like my perspective about how women can be.
Right.
So
Same.
that's a huge part of my upbringing. Of course, being raised by a single parent, by a single mom, that
Mm-hmm.
obviously with that
Yeah.
really. So I
Yeah.
think all of those, I hate to sound cheesy, but I feel like all of those events for my personal life, for my career, um, I feel like they all prepared me for Mischief Editor. I also sing, so I used to sing with the UP concert chorus, and then now I sing with Bukas Palad. And those experiences, they also give me a wider perspective of the world, which I'm also able to apply to Mischief Editor. So,
That's
for
awesome.
example, for UP Concert Chorus, we traveled the world. We went to different places. We went to Europe, etc. So that also made me more aware of cultural differences. And then now with Bukas Palad, we do outreach programs. We visit prisons, and that also, that also shapes how I
Wow.
view the world. So
Yeah.
aside from like academics or career, those little things in my personal life, I feel like they're also part of the brand.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. I mean, like, and it's so great to mention those as highlight reels also of like your background, because it's not necessarily focusing on media, but really like in the macro of it, like what else you've experienced outside of that that actually helped you form and create Mischief Editor. So, it seems like anyone can call themselves a writer these days. And you can take that however that resonates, monsters. But based on your professional experience, then, who would you consider, or what kind of person or individual would you consider to be a good writer, or what characteristics would you expect from one?
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't want to gatekeep writing. If
Yeah,
anyone who
yeah,
wants to
right.
write can write,
Mm-hmm.
but professional writing, that takes a lot of restraint.
Mm-hmm.
It's,
That's a good
you
point.
really have to hone your craft. I remember last September I did a talk in PCOL,
Mm-hmm.
and then a student journalist, he asked, how do I write if the school admin keeps on, censoring our our articles that are against blah blah blah. And I'm like, that's the challenge for you as a writer. How do you deliver your message without alienating or antagonizing people, but
Mm.
still, being able to deliver that message to your target audience. So I
Yeah.
think that's what separates like an amateur writer to with a from a professional writer. That level of restraint
Mm-hmm.
and that level of discipline.
Mm. And I feel like that's actually a really good point, because it's like, because there are bloggers will refer to them as writers, but then not necessarily professional writers, since they're very, like, it's very opinion based,
Yeah.
whatever it is that they write about. So I guess it's a good thing to keep in mind. That's the challenge, I think, for professional writers, or for those who want to be professionals in writing. And now, like, you also pinned on your Instagram post about like the three pillars of good
Yeah.
writing. And so I want to dive into this. So could you share with the monster? So for whoever, whether professional or non-professional writers, probably a good gauge to keep or to remember are these three pillars of good writing. So what are these pillars?
Okay. So I have three, which is again like a culmination of everything that I've learned.
Mm-hmm.
Like I mentioned, when you write, you have to be unrestrained at first. You have to be unhinged. So you put everything on paper. But when you edit, that's where you start cutting out things. And that's where I realized these three pillars. So the first is substance. Because even if you have something so well written, something that's so highfalutin, something with a lot of flowery words,
Yeah.
if the message is, if it doesn't make any sense, or if it doesn't have value, then it's not of good quality. So substance is the first. And yeah, whatever, if you're adding value to the body of literature, if you're even memos, there
Yeah.
are a lot of memos that are so long but they don't have any value.
Right. One
So
sentence can sometimes be enough.
exactly. So that in itself, that's substance.
Yeah.
What's the substance of your writing? And then followed by structure. So
Mhm.
after substance, of course, you want to make sure that it's structured in a way that will appeal or that will sit well with your audience.
Mm-mm.
One thing that I noticed a lot of people do in the comment section or when they fight online is they just put their, their disagreements, and they're just like, no, 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 this, no, 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 that.
Mm-mm.
But in fact, a better way of doing it is to listen and acknowledge first what the other
Yeah.
person is saying,
Mm.
and then say, however, I also think that this is dot dot
Mm-mm.
dot. So that structure, you have to also think about how you massage the messaging. And then finally, style, which I think a lot of people think is the most important part of writing, but it's not. It's the least important part of writing. So style is how you string words together,
Mhm.
the cadence,
Mhm.
where you put your words in the sentence, in the sequence of words, the punctuation, etc. So It's the least important because, again, the most important part of communicating is adding value to the world.
Mm, gotcha. So substance, structure, and style.
Yeah,
Three pillars of good writing, according to Miss Chief Editor
according to
herself.
me.
Love it. Love it. And so, actually, it's such a good point that you mentioned because for me, starting out as a writer, I used to think that parang sa style, you have to like learn your voice, figure out your voice in writing and everything. And which made sense to me. But then of course, like people are reading your work for a reason. And there has to be a point that you're trying to get across. So like to prioritize like substance, I feel like it's is so vital because people can get carried away, diba?
Mhm.
They can get carried away with writing. They want to write more, but then but that sometimes kind of like misses the whole like main idea of why you even started writing so and so in the first place.
Mhm.
So that's really awesome. And yeah, it's so cool also that you okay, so you majored in English in UPD,
Yes.
and then you pursued business communications at Harvard.
Mhm.
Harvard. I want to say that like twice at least. So first, I'd like to know like what compelled you to pursue a major in the English language? Has this always been a passion for you?
I think I excelled in English when I was
Mm.
in
Baka ba
school.
excelled?
I think. I mean, compared to math, I mean, I was sure about English.
Mhm,
So,
mhm.
when I selected, I think when you're younger, you don't really realize what you want to be. So,
True,
right,
true.
and English was a safe course because it had so many applications. And one of the things that English majors do is they pursue law after. So,
Ah,
okay,
okay,
I'll
okay.
try this, and then come like third year, I had room for electives,
Mm-mm.
so choose subjects. I was avoiding creative writing because I felt like the writers are so intimidating. They have their
Mm.
own world, etc.
Mhm.
Then here I am, I like pink, and so I feel like I'm gonna be judged. But actually, I ended up taking like 12 units of creative writing courses, and I really liked the
Wow.
courses. And
Wow.
yeah, so and then when I started working, I went into corporate communications, which again is not, it's not really about writing
Mm-mm.
because nga, I was I didn't think of myself as a professional writer, and I
Mm-mm.
think that's
Mm-mm.
imposter syndrome.
Might be,
but,
might be. Yeah.
I mean, but eventually, I don't know, I guess it's fate, serendipity. I found myself in a writing role, and then
Mhm.
I feel like this is my calling. So yeah, that's how I ended up becoming a writer.
So initially, you wanted to you like it was in pursuit of like taking up law eventually, or
Well,
like you were just feeling things out, but now.
I was not a good student. I didn't really think about my career afterward. Parang
Okay.
my mom told me that I had to finish my course in 4 years because in UP uso yung extend.
Yes.
So she told
Yeah.
me, "Sure, you can extend, but I won't give you allowance after after
Hala.
the fourth year." So I'm like,
Uh-uh.
okay, I'll just finish this course. So it was
Mm-mm.
really like that. But while I was learning about English, parang I feel like it's also maybe the best course for a writer in English because you become more sensitive about word meanings or
Mm.
nuances in
Mm-mm.
language.
Yeah.
And also it's because of that course that I learned about language awareness, which is
Mm.
like a major part of the mischief editor content. So our
Okay.
professor, she would walk in the classroom bringing like newspapers, and then
Uh-huh.
she would show us like how words are being used now in the language. So I remember there was one time about emails with a
Mm-hmm.
plural.
Mm-mm.
Because
Mm-mm.
there's no, when you talk about snail mail, you don't say snail mails,
Fair. That's
right? But
fair.
when you
Yeah.
talk about email, it's normal to say emails. So
Mm-mm.
that was like, okay, this is a change and shift in language, ganyan. So in the same manner now, I feel like that's why I use real world
Mm.
um examples like open letters for
Right.
Mark Zuckerberg. So I think that's language awareness. So that was a fun course. For Harvard, well, I did that because again, fresh out of a
Yeah.
breakup.
Okay. Yes.
And this is something that I've wanted to do for such a long time, to take graduate studies.
Mm.
So this course, it's a certificate program. It lasted for 1.5 year.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like it was my baby steps before masters.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
But I was so happy to have done it, because it's so different pala to study when you have already had work experience.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's so
especially
true.
if you were, like as a college student like me that was delinquent, and so now it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to study. And
Yeah. So what was it like then? Because I understand like it was online.
yeah,
It was
yeah,
an online
pandemic.
class. Yeah, during the pandemic. But it's a Harvard class. So like like what was it like doing that online class like for Harvard third time? And what were like the expectations? Like were you pressured by the expectations they had, or were you more like excited to know like how far you can take this?
So the classes at Harvard, they were evening classes in Boston. So here they were at like 5 a.m. So
Yeah,
I
oh my
woke up
gosh.
early, like ahead of the sun, to
Gosh.
take those classes. And then, of course, it was fun at first. I mean, well, it was really fun all throughout. But I
Mm-mm.
mean, at the start, I was like, yes, I'm enjoying, I'm listening.
Mm-mm.
And then how you know how in schools when there's this that student who sits in front and then raises their hand.
Mm.
So I didn't want to be that student. So obviously, I would just answer when I wanted to.
Yeah.
After during my first subject in the during the midterms, they gave an evaluation, and then my participation was super low. And then I
What?
found out that that may be because of the cultural difference.
Mm.
Because we Filipinos, I think we tend to, we don't want to be
Yeah.
Jollibee.
And we're
So
and we're and like for students at Harvard, assuming like most of them are Americans, also very
mm-mm,
outspoken.
exactly. So
Yeah,
I was like, okay, so I need to speak up more.
yeah, yeah.
But what I discovered, and what I really liked about studying at Harvard, which I discovered then, was if you speak up, they will listen. There's no judgment, unlike what I expected before. Like
Yeah.
when I talk, people would nod their heads on the screen, and
Mm.
so I was like, oh my gosh, people are listening to me. I have valuable opinions.
Yeah.
So it was really nice to have that kind of experience. I think that also boosted my confidence, and it made
Yeah.
me feel that it pushed further that idea that people who are more timid, they can at least try to get out of their shells a bit,
Yeah.
and see that the world will actually listen.
Yeah, and like yeah, just see what happens when you actually decide to speak up. If you feel like you've been playing small for quite some time, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like you'll be surprised by what happens if you decide to like really take up space. Diba?
Yeah,
I feel like that's really cool.
take up space. Yes, I love
Yeah,
that term.
diba?
Love it.
So, Miss Chief Editor, I what's so what's so fascinating about the content that you put out on Instagram, there's such a level of sass like in some of the, well actually if you think about it, okay, as someone who has also worked in media for like until now, but then like as an editor or having work edited,
Uh-huh.
having my work edited, like there are some feedback or comments that you will receive that are kind of like you would feel like it's attacking you, but it's really just like being objective about what it is that you are writing and how
Uh-uh.
it can better be phrased. But there's sometimes I do see like there's like a level of sass, how it just like I can sense like a little bit of annoyance. It could have just been done like this way, right? And it's so it which I love, because sometimes like you need that, eagle eye talaga, and you need that feedback so that people will know na parang we've been fed this kind of information in this way, in the
Uh-uh.
structure that we're so used to, that we don't even give it a second thought. So for you to actually point it out in such a like blatant sassy way, like I mentioned, it's like it really puts it at the foreground of like, yeah, I think we need to question these things, and we need to have a better keep a better eye on like whatever it is that we consume on social media. Like how you edit, I want to know, is it something that you've always had, like the way that you edit, or is it something that you picked up from Harvard, or like how did that come about?
So I'm laughing because I feel like this is trauma.
Is it?
That's how I got feedback before.
Oh my god,
No, not really. But I guess the sass also comes from me. So,
Which is fine. That's like it's branding.
well, I try to. I mean, I make it as subjective as possible, but I
Mhm.
see what you mean. I think that post last like the other day about a press release, and I put,
Mm.
please don't end with a shout out. Yeah, cause like, girl, yeah, I think that's just my personality also. But I think I make sure that I make the comments objective. Like,
Mm.
you have to explain to the people why the sentence doesn't sound good.
Mm-mm.
It's not enough to say this is an ugly,
Yeah.
badly, poorly written letter. No, you
Right.
have to point out this dangling modifier makes the sentence unclear, or
Mm-mm.
putting the subject in the second paragraph buries the lead, which
Yeah.
misleads the people when they just read the first two, three sentences. So,
Right.
I try to make it as objective as possible. And sorry for the sass.
Don't apologize for the sass, please, because the point is what's also great about like you like highlighting about these dangling modifiers, etc. It's that not only like you see the red for the edits, but also you can see how it can be better written,
Mhm.
diba? And so you actually provide suggestion recommendations like this. It could have been in your version, it could be like this,
Yeah.
but there are different ways that you can actually write it.
Mhm.
And so it's really not to just like bash whatever it's not to bash the writing material, but it's really to
Mhm.
just like suggest ways and how it can be better communicated in writing. And also there's one I still remember, like I
Oh.
saw a post. It's like you mentioned it was like well written but full of BS. Oh my god, I love it.
Oh my gosh,
It's so
yeah.
funny.
Well,
So
a lot of stuff are well written but full of BS. So
there we go. See, there's a sass.
sorry.
Just kidding. No, but it's so that's why it's so refreshing because
Mhm.
like people would think that they're sophisticated, like right, or you're scared of them. But then to be a little bit more comical about it, I think it's just like it kind of takes away the fear, but it also it makes it more digestible also in that
Mhm.
sense.
Well, kind of like my post recently about motherhood statements,
Yes.
showing
Yes.
Mama RuPaul,
Yeah.
because yeah, a lot of brands, they love making themselves look good,
Right.
sound good,
Hmm.
but if you really look at that sentence and absorb that sentence, it really doesn't mean anything, and it's a
Mm-mm.
disservice to people,
Right.
and also a disservice to those brands, because and the CEOs that they quote in their press releases, because there's, if you're a CEO, I'm sure you can say something more than let's make the world a better place, right?
Mm-mm.
I mean,
Mm-mm.
I'm sure they've had a lot of experience, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
academic. They're academically decorated, and they earn like six figures. And then
At
to
least.
give at least, and then to give them that kind of quote, that's just
Yeah.
motherhood. It's yeah. So I point that out because the world is so full of motherhood statements, and I'm tired of them.
Yeah. And it's good to challenge also, no, but to point that out and to challenge whether it's the CEO who's writing or someone else, a ghostwriter for that CEO,
Mhm.
to, come up with something that's a little bit more, I don't know, that's more relevant, something that's more personal or something that can really, not like it sounds cliche to say touch the hearts of many,
Mm-mm.
but something that we can relate to. So it's like
Yeah.
something that we can remember and not just, fall under the category of motherhood statements. So now I want to get to that part. Okay, we talked a lot about like her content. We're gonna keep talking about the content because there's a lot of really entertaining, cheeky, sassy, informative posts on Miss Chief Editor or MCE. And so I wish we had like time to talk about each and every one because I swear there's so much. Um, I've chosen though like a handful of topics so we could
Mhm.
discuss on HOT that could help and educate monsters on reading between the lines of social content and also become better netizens in how
Mhm.
to better digest the social posts that we see on the daily. So I remember that you wanted to talk about prescriptivism.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that'll be the first thing that we'll talk
Okay,
about.
let's get it over with.
Yeah, let's go for it. So could you tell us I guess simplest form, like what
Mhm.
prescriptivism is?
A lot of people who follow me, like new followers, they think that I'm a grammar Nazi, but I'm not. I am
Mm-mm.
not, because I know about prescriptivism
Mhm.
and descriptivism. So prescriptivism, it is the idea that some varieties of English are superior to others. So what are
Okay.
varieties of English? You have UK English,
Mm-mm.
American English, and then Philippine English is a variety of English. So prescriptivism is, when we correct people because they're baroque,
Mm.
simply because we're judging people for how they use the English
Right.
language. The how people switch the P's and their F's when they
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah.
That is because those speakers are more used to using P's.
Mhm.
And because they know other languages, that's why they switch. And that's just the reason why. And that's what descriptivism does. They describe how language is used, period.
Mm.
So prescriptivists, they are the ones who gatekeep how language is supposed to be used.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And for so prescriptivism, is that like it's a synonymous to being a grammar
Yeah.
Nazi?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Something like
Gotcha.
that. Yep.
And I feel like that term should be like laos na at some
I
point, right?
know.
Grammar
Especially
Nazi.
now with the things that are happening in the world. We don't want
Right?
references
We
to
need a woker term, I
genocide or
think. Oh my gosh. So okay, so prescriptivism is like what gatekeeps people from
Mhm.
like I guess using proper
Yeah.
use of language depending on like the variety of like sorry,
Mm-mm.
what was it?
Like prescriptivism is the idea that there are varieties of
Varieties,
English that
yes.
are superior to others.
Ah, there we go. There we go.
Yeah.
So you guys can use that as like a talk point if you guys
If
are
people correct them for their grammar,
yeah,
you say it's
prescriptivist.
just prescriptivism. You're not superior to me.
There we go. There we go. There's the confidence, diba? Or at least
The
we learned
sass.
something. If you had one takeaway this evening. Now, another type of content that we
Mhm.
see online more often also political content, right? So we see those left and right.
Mhm.
Sometimes it goes viral. Sometimes you just can't unsee it because you just scroll past it and it's right there.
Mm-mm.
So when it comes to reading political content, statements, releases, articles, etc., what are some things that we can keep in mind before taking those at like face value, especially when it comes to statements that really serve, you know what, like it serves particular person,
Mm.
and it's kind of like yeah, and you want to make sure like before you actually take it at face value, like what are some things that we can like look out for
Yeah.
like in the material.
We have to be really aware of our biases.
Mm,
And
yeah.
we also need to escape our filter bubble. The filter bubble is a term that talks about, like, how algorithms, because of algorithms, if you like a certain kind of post, then the social media,
Yeah.
the what do you call this app, whatever,
Yeah.
they push the same kind of content.
Right.
So we have two people with different political views, and both of them see a lot of content that align with their perspective, and they feel validated.
Mm-mm.
So when they go out into the world and meet, they're like, no, that's not true. People don't
Mm-mm.
think that way. Ganyan. So it causes a lot of disagreements. I preach about escaping the filter bubble because if we really want to be critical thinkers, we have to be able to evaluate opinions, even those opinions that don't necessarily align with ours.
Mm-mm.
So an example of this is, recently, obviously, the top hot topic, the one with the urgency is the situation in Hamas.
Mhm.
So just an example, I share a lot of posts, for example, from Al Jazeera,
Mhm.
also those that talk about how Western media seems to lean towards pro-Israeli content. And then I shared, so recently I shared one article from the Atlantic about Hamas. And I guess my mistake is I didn't annotate.
Mm-mm.
I just shared it, and then I got like maybe 2 or 3 comments like, that person is against blah blah
Mm-mm.
blah. Ganyan. And I say, oh, it's okay, because I think he shared a few valid points, but I just like to share from different perspectives.
Mhm.
So anyway, after that, I shared another one from the Atlantic, but this one was more forthcoming. The
Mm-mm.
headline was literally Hamas must go. So, okay,
Mm.
and so what I did was I shared it again with an annotation that the Atlantic's leaning seems to be, you know, super obvious.
Yeah, yeah, right.
And then I quoted one of my followers who shared with me that the editor in chief of the Atlantic used to work with the Israeli Defense Force. Yeah, and
Ah.
then there's a screenshot of an author profile that proves it. So yeah, then I shared it. And then this follower, she replied and said, you know what, I unfollowed you because of the previous post. So, and then she apologized naman, and then she also parang thanked me. Pero
Mm-mm.
I was like, yeah, I post, you know, things from different sides because I don't want to be confined in just this echo chamber.
Mm-mm.
I feel like it's important for different, for everyone to not be afraid of information, but to be brave enough to know that they can evaluate these kinds of content.
Right. And that's that's super insightful because it's like we like to consume content that, that we side with, that we're more
Yeah.
biased with. And so for us to try and get into content that kind of shows the other side of like the spectrum,
Mm-mm.
let's say, it can be it can stir some feelings actually. I feel like that's happened to me like a few times also. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, no, I want to stop reading this. I feel like it's kind of
Yeah.
like, right? It can
Mm-mm.
be uncomfortable, but to try to keep things like objective, I think is the important part. Because if you want to be diplomatic and see, like, if for you to kind of I guess digest information and see both sides, I think that's so much more well-rounded, I guess.
Yeah, and the paradox also of the woke Twitter
Mm,
generation is
yeah.
they preach about, well, when they talk to conservative people, they're like, you have to be open-minded about LGBT, about
Hmm.
divorce, about blah blah blah. But at the same time, they're also closing themselves to only their own ideas.
Right.
And nothing's going to happen if all of us just spew our own sides.
Mm-mm.
There always has to be in conflict resolution.
Yeah.
You always have to consider what the other person feels.
Yeah, there has to be like a space where both sides can actually you're willing to hear them out, and like as long as of course, like both sides, they're willing to hear you out also
Yeah.
in certain situations or in certain topics as well. And so there's another concept that I would like to talk about,
Mhm.
and it is the it and I've seen this a lot also, not just from your content.
Mm.
I can be also guilty about this before when I
Oh my
started
gosh,
out
what's
writing.
that?
Purple prose. Purple prose. It's not only seen in political
Oh
content, like I mentioned,
gosh.
but in a number of other press material or media material that's worth looking out for. So this is how you will know monsters if you are guilty of this too. When Miss Chief Editor herself defines what this is.
Oh my gosh, purple prose is overly ornate writing. So for example, if you just want to say I'm going to poop, but when you use purple prose, you use super like difficult terms. I'm going to eliminate blah blah
Or
blah. Yeah,
defecates and
defecate.
like,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that is an example. A bad example of purple prose.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of new writers are victims
Mm-mm.
uh of 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 this because they rely on thesauruses.
Right. Oh my
Kasi
gosh.
feeling nila the more difficult terms that I'm a real writer, but actually if you read the writing books like Elements of Style
Mm-mm.
or even the one by Stephen King on writing,
Mm-mm.
they will always say you have to use the most swak the
Mm-mm.
word.
Mm-mm.
It's not about choosing difficult, complex terms if your concept is actually very simple,
Mm-mm.
diba? So, writing is about using the most appropriate words
Mm-mm.
for whatever you want to say. It's not about reaching for difficult terms
Yeah.
for. Yeah, that's oh.
Yeah. No, I cringe at myself like thinking about that too, because like starting out, of course, you want to impress like with
Yeah.
your writing, and you're just like, oh, I know these words. I know what these words mean. I know idioms also and everything, diba? So it's like I fell into that trap for sure. And
Yeah.
then it wasn't until like I really had a little bit more formal training in writing, that if you can, like, if you can explain it simply, like
Mm-hmm.
in simpler terms, then like then that means like a lot more people are going to be able to understand what it is that you're saying. so
Exactly, exactly.
so they're purple pros, you
Purple
guys. Don't
pros,
fall into that trap.
please.
Oh my gosh. And
Just
okay,
kidding.
so there's another one. It's not necessarily a term, but it's like a suggestion that you've made, which is to simplify nominalizations. And I
Oh,
feel like I have done this. Usually, we will do this, monsters, if we need to meet a word count. Let's say it's happened. So, what does simplify nominalizations mean?
nominalizations, I think the easiest way to remember them is they end with Sean. Most of them end with
Okay,
Sean.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
description, application,
Mm-mm.
all those things. So instead of saying I am going to submit an application, you can say I will apply.
Simple as that.
Nominalizations, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so there, simplify nominalizations, and really just like it's kind of like making it into turning it into the verb, like from a noun and then
Yes.
using it into like its verb form.
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
shorter that way. But if you need to meet a word count,
Character count.
character count also, we see you.
I get it.
Yeah, I get it. I've done it also. Okay, next one is like this is more like a strategy in business communication,
Mhm.
and specifically in negotiation. So there's this acronym, and he used also the analogy of Emily in Paris. Is it Gabriel? Yeah, I think that was like the post.
Uh-huh.
Of course, I had to click on it. I was like, he's cute. Anyway,
I think that's
just
the reason why I used this picture.
yeah. And so the acronym like BATNA or BATNA. Yeah, so
Oh,
best alternative to a negotiated agreement. So this can be applied
yeah.
in
Yeah.
job promotions or buying when you're about to make a purchase or something.
Yeah.
So how does this look like, let's say, in a conversation?
Okay, I learned that in my negotiation class, which I really took because I used to be, not confident about negotiation. I'm not good at math, so I don't negotiate. And I felt awkward about talking about money and
Mm-mm.
also relating my work with, evaluating
Yeah,
like my
yeah.
work and yeah. And so, but I said I need to take this course because I can't rely on other people always to negotiate for me.
Right.
So BATNA is an interesting concept, best alternative to a negotiated agreement.
Yeah.
That is like your walk away point.
Mm.
So every time you go into a negotiation, you have to have that other alternative. You can't just, diba? You can't just go into a negotiation and you just say yes to whatever they're going to say, even if they lowball you, etc. So
Right.
you have to have that confidence to have that. I am going to walk away because, and that's not just in business, parang it's
Mm-mm.
also applicable to like love life.
Yeah, for sure. And you did mention this in the post also. It's
Mm-mm.
like you have to be ready to walk away because you know
Yeah.
like there is an alternative. Even if
Mm-mm.
like if it's in the concept of love life, even if there's no one yet, there's
Yeah.
someone better coming.
Exactly.
Ganon.
You are the best
Yeah.
alternative.
But also like with regard to like BATNA, you
Mhm.
did mention that you don't have to bring up the alternative,
Yes.
but just knowing that you do have that alternative, if the deal doesn't go your way or if the negotiation doesn't work out, you are ready to walk away because you do have that alternative.
Yeah. The BATNA is your power.
Yeah.
And sometimes, this is interesting also in my negotiation class. We talked about should you lie in a negotiation? And obviously, everyone will say, no, why will I lie? But actually, we do have those little white lies like,
Right.
can we reduce the price ng konti because my mom will not agree, but in reality, you just
Mm-mm.
really don't want to pay that price. So,
Yeah.
that's also part of it. You don't need to say everything. But the BATNA, I think it gives you inner confidence.
Yeah. That's cool. So like in case you guys are wondering like, job promotion or just seeking out like something better, just make sure you have an alternative. So at least
Especially
you
for
have a fallback,
January, because people are going to, when they get their 13th month pay.
Ay, yon.
So there, you have to have your
Important.
BATNA before you get into those discussions.
Yeah, for sure. Now, my favorite stories, and I can relate to this because I own like a micro bakery, right? So one of the
What?
viral stories that you posted was
Oh,
your take on like this unmanned kiosk of a local cookie shop. You guys probably know what we're talking about. And this lady decided to take matters into her own hands, get the cookies herself, box it, and then message the shop saying like, "I'll Gcash you na lang since walang tao sa kiosk," right?
and then siya pa yung nagalit.
And then siya pa yung nagalit, did not recommend the shop. And because she received berating messages now from the shop rep. So from this example or from this situation, you pointed out Minto's pyramid principle. So
Yeah.
which is in relation to the response of the shop reps, to the shop rep. No, it's in relation to the response that the shop rep gave to the lady. So how can we use that principle in real life?
This is another thing I learned from Harvard. Sobrang valuable.
Oh, it's Harvard.
I know. You should try. So, Barbara Minto she was a McKinsey consultant for the longest time, and she was the one who made this formula. So it's a pyramid principle. So the two parang major forms of that triangle is inductive and deductive.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the deductive one. The deductive one is what I also recommend for yun nga yung commenters or basta anything complicated or controversial.
Yeah.
So instead of going straight to your point, like, that is wrong, that's not going to sit well with a lot of people. I mean, even naman us, diba? Kung we're so passionate about something and someone's gonna kill your vibe, it hurts. So the deductive principle, the idea is you start with a non-controversial situation. So, hi, thank you for blah, blah, blah. We understand we're on the same page on this. Ganyan, you level with them and you don't shock them. And then after that, you move to the complication. However, this is the problem with what you did. Ganyan. So, at least you don't attack them agad from the start. This is the problem with what you did. Ganon. You give them you butter up muna. And then after that, after you've given that, however, you go to the resolution. So moving forward, can we ... So I think that's one of the most popular concepts that I use on the page, and a lot of people have commented that it's helped them in their workplaces because it's really helpful. I also catch myself. I think kasi ako rin as a person, I used to be very frank and brutally frank, as my mother would say. So after that, I learned, okay, there there are some situations where you need to chill.
Some lang.
Controversial situations.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's diba, parang of course if you don't wanna ruffle feathers also. You wanna keep the peace even if you disagree.
Yeah, and I've noticed also that, well, I didn't know that this actually had a title to it, but I've also seen, like hotel marketing teams also like comment, like yung mga TripAdvisor or something, yung mga complaints nila, like they're like, I'm seeing now like how they're using that pyramid principle, because it's really trying to mitigate a situation that that allows that person to probably come back to the establishment or something, so that they don't fully like commit to hating on like the brand or something.
Yes.
So there you go. Pyramid principle.
Minto, she's a woman.
I know, Barbara.
Go Barbie.
There we go. Now, also, we're nearing the end of the show, but then, is there anything that you'd like to impart to the monsters? Anything else, like maybe top of your head, something that we should all learn, apart from prescriptivism, which you wanted to point out? But like, is there anything else that you feel like, especially, I guess, locally, that we need to remember when it comes to consuming social media content, be it like political or celebrity or otherwise? Is there something that you feel like not necessarily a term or a strategy or something, but like any word of advice, I guess, in that sense?
I guess what I could think of now would be, we have to be aware of our unconscious biases.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's something that I would impart to everyone, even ako, even me, when obviously I have, as a person, I have my own politicians that I like or I don't like. So
Mhm.
even before I annotate, or
Mm-mm.
even before I even think about, I'm going to edit this and use this as content, I also think to myself, am I just being biased, or is there
Mm-mm.
really something that I need to point out in this situation? So
Yeah.
I think that's something that a lot of us should also practice.
Do you ever wonder, like, if like whenever you're about to make a post and then you're gonna annotate, like whoever wrote that particular piece,
Mm-mm.
um like sees the post that you put
Will they
out
get
there,
hurt?
would they get hurt? Have you ever thought about like the maybe a negative reaction coming from them before posting it? Or at this point are you just like, well, it's not like they would understand it's not necessary to attack the work, or
Mm-mm-mm.
it's not necessary to attack the person rather, but it's really just like, giving like honest feedback about like the work that was put out there by this particular person. So like how have you considered that, or it's never really crossed your mind, I guess.
I actively consider it.
Mm-mm.
That's why I really select what content to criticize.
Mm,
Kasi if it's, there's so many things that you can edit in the world,
that's
but
true.
like, what are those things that will actually have impact, or what are those materials that actually, like, promote some sort of level of oppression to a certain group of
Yeah,
people, diba?
yeah.
So those are the material that I create content for. I think one of the ways I get to mitigate bashers also is I don't really post exposés or
Right, right.
illegal content. These are all materials that they wrote, they published, they disseminated. So, whatever they delivered, they put out there, that's just I just read them with my own lens.
Mm-mm.
But in terms of hurting people, well, hurting writers,
Yeah.
you would I usually I just criticize like big brands or government officials, because I feel like they have a responsibility, and they have the
Right,
budget
right,
also to hire better people.
right.
But small businesses, ganyan, I don't na, kasi, diba, what's the reason? I mean, I don't wanna hurt, or I don't wanna make them lose business because
Yeah,
pagtatawanan lang natin. No naman. I think it's also, I have to be responsible also.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And so when you read through like I can only imagine how much content you consume in a day for you to find like certain things that you want to be, oh, okay, I kind of want to like
I know, I get a lot of tips.
you get okay,
Some of
okay.
them pa, well, a number of them, they come from employees of the brand.
Juicy. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
I'm not gonna say syempre
Of
to
course.
protect, pero it also means that internally there are people who have, they don't like this kind of messaging or whatever,
Yeah,
pero they're
yeah.
not listened to in their office. So
That's
share nila
interesting.
sa akin. And then, yun nga, those materials are public naman. And yeah, I agree naman. So, okay, sige, let's post this. And then they're happy.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Tea.
yeah, gosh. It's so fascinating. At least, and it's good to know that there are people like in that company, or there are people
Yes.
who are aware at
Mm-hmm.
least, and who are probably unafraid to like send it to like to you and
I
be like,
know.
we need someone unrelated or
Third
not
party.
connected
Yeah.
to
Thank you for
talk
your
about
trust,
this.
chiefs.
There
Like
we go.
Tulfo.
Tool but for written work. Love it. So now, okay, so you had your first post in 2021. You now garnered like thousands of
Mm.
followers on Mischief Editor. So initially it was to help you heal from a bad breakup, but now has your purpose shifted in continuing to post content? Has it shifted for into something else as you continue to post content on that brand page?
Oh, I'm so glad you raised that. Yes, I mean, it was life changing for me. I never really intended to have like followers more than my friends beyond that circle. I think I also enjoy the relative obscurity on Instagram,
Mm-mm.
diba? But I'm really grateful for this community that I discovered on Instagram, because parang it gave me a calling. It gave me parang it made sense, everything that I went through in life.
Mm-mm.
And I also believe that the Pareto principle, yung parang 80% of consequences come from 20% of action.
Another
Ganyan,
nugget
no?
of wisdom.
Business principle siya.
Yeah.
So, like, compared to other, celebrities, influencers, they have like hundreds of thousands of followers.
Yeah.
Mine is quite small,
Mm-mm.
but I believe that this small niche, they're, professionals who come from brands that make an impact on the social media landscape,
Mm-mm.
or they're students who are super interested and who want to be the next leaders. And I think that's enough for me to tap that market and eventually see that. I hope that it has a better impact on society. Wow,
Mm-mm.
society agad. But yeah, I'm very thankful that this happened, yung mischief. It's unexpected, but God moves in mysterious ways, I guess.
For sure.
Mhm.
And so what's next now, Mischief Editor? You have a communication consultancy. You hold workshops and programs and the like. So what are, like, is there anything that you want to do, or you feel like branching out into something else, maybe in relation to it, or is there something else that internally within MCE that you want to explore?
First, I need to find a new boyfriend. No, just kidding. Speaking of that consultancy, that was also unplanned. It was only because of that page.
Mm-mm.
People, yun nga, corporations, they approached me for trainings.
Oh, wow.
That's why I registered it sa BIR. I pay my taxes.
Ayan na.
Yeah, so that's and then parang even if I post sometimes political posts,
Mm-mm.
ganyan, there are still a lot of companies nga who want to work with me. So that is something that I've been doing for this year, and of course until next year. Exciting brands and organizations, but I can't announce yet.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
And I do have those workshops, pero I only was able to do 2 this year kasi nga Mischief Editor is just one person. I can't do everything.
Yeah.
So I hope by next year I can have a more, a rhythm na to be able to conduct more workshops para, for my followers, for my chiefs.
I love
Chiefs,
that.
yeah.
I'm a chief now also. But it's...
I'm a monster naman.
Ay, yun! Gusto ko yan.
Of
Gusto... Well, oh my gosh, Paula, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for joining me this evening.
you.
It was so fun to talk to you. So nice to finally have a face to the brand of Mischief Editor. And now you guys
Yeah.
know. Now you guys know as well. And I hope that you monsters have also gained appreciation in terms of how to communicate better, what it means to have excellent communication skills also. And if you need more ways on how to be a better writer or how to be a better social media user, I guess, follow her on Instagram.
Follow me.
Yeah. So
Mischief Editor is MISS. Baka,
MS.
yeah, MIS. Kasi it's true naman, mischief talaga. But MISS kasi, diba? Wordplay.
Oh my God!
Ano ba?
So slow.
Plot twist.
So slow. At the end of the show talaga, no? Perfect timing. Oh my God. Miss Chief Editor.
MISS.
Oh my God. I'm mind blown now. But what a nice way to end the show, honestly. It's so fascinating, and it's so lives up to the name. My God. That's amazing.
Surprise.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, there you go. Miss Chief Editor on Instagram. Also, she has a website also for you, in case you guys are interested in workshops or in programs. But I guess you'll have to wait because so that she has time to prepare for them. Diba? So there we go. Thank you for joining us, monsters.
Thank you.
And catch me again next Thursday for another guest on the show. For now, though, keep it locked only here on The Monster. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Monster exclusive interview. Monster exclusive interview. Only from Manila's hottest. Monster RX93.1.